Objections are a common thing in any sales process. Understanding objections is important because you will get them almost always during whatever process that you are executing. Remember, we're talking about moving people down the pipeline, not necessarily closing. A victory is each individual move down your sales pipeline. So keep your objections in mind in lieu of that measurement of victory. It's not like you have to close every sale during every conversation. So what is an objection? An objection is a customer telling you why he or she can't buy. They'll say something like it's too expensive is an objection. These are very common. You're going to get them through almost any sales process. And the goal with objections is to overcome them or to respond to them. Sometimes you may never completely answer an objection and you'll get a sale anyway, but often you're going to want to give them a reason why maybe they should look at the situation a little differently. Or you're going to want to drill down and find out more, which we'll get into in a second. So overcoming objections is more of an art than it is a science. There are lots of methodologies that you can go learn about on the internet to overcome objections. Some of them are good, some of them are very aggressive and sort of cheap. It really comes down to your own personal style. But one thing you should always be doing is making a list of objections that you hear over the course of selling with responses, because you're going to start hearing the same objections come up over and over and over again from customers. And if you have very good responses to those objections, you're going to use them almost from memory. So that's an important thing to do, is keep a list. Also, objections, if you're smart, they will shape your collateral and your ROI documentation, meaning that the stuff that you put out to customers will reflect the fact that you've already heard objections and you have answers to those objections in your sales collateral. Also in your ROI, if people think it's too expensive, you're going to be talking a lot about value for the dollar, so they no longer think it's relatively expensive. So these are types of objections. It's too expensive, it doesn't do what I want it to do, it's going to be too hard to install, I've never heard of this brand before, there's no way that my wife would let me do this, I don't know what this is, or I don't know enough about this. Those are sort of common objections that you're going to hear. So let's look at some of those objections and talk about how to deal with them and how to overcome them. So first of all, there's a list of things that you shouldn't do that will kill you in the process of overcoming objections. Number one is never say you're wrong or argue with the customer. Nobody likes to be told they're wrong. Don't say things like you're stupid, or you don't understand, or that's not what I said, or you didn't listen to me. Those are all argumentative responses that will simply make a customer upset. So even if they didn't listen to you, or if they are wrong, you don't ever say that. Also, ask for word definitions so you get a better understanding of what the objection is. Often they're going to be using words that you want to make sure that you force them to define so that you know what the definition is. Most objections that end up being a problem come from misunderstandings. So if you just ask a bunch of questions and you understand better what they're objecting to, then you know how to shape your value proposition in response to that. Also, never guess. Never say something that's a guess. You can preface it by saying, my guess is something something. That's okay. But don't just flat out guess. Don't badmouth competitors if one of their objections is around your competitor. That's never going to win friends or make you look good. You might think it'll help you, but don't badmouth your competitors. Talk about your own value. And don't dwell on objections. You don't have to talk on them for hours and hours and hours. Move on in the sales process, because you may build value in another place that overcomes those objections. So there are lots of techniques. Go out and research them. But this is one technique, it's a series of responses. You're going to be honest about your shortcomings to begin with, so don't avoid things that you might think they would object to, or things that your product's not very good at. This builds credibility. And empathize, and that includes waiting. It's okay to say, yeah, I don't like it when a product breaks too, or I don't like paying too much for such and such either. But also wait. After they give an objection, wait, because they'll often keep enunciating their objection and sometimes solve it for themselves before you even need to respond. This is key. Ask questions and better understand the objection. And we'll get to some examples over here. Revisit the benefits, meaning after you've asked a bunch of questions and you think you know what it is, go back to the benefits and remind them, well, hey, it does this and it does that, and compared to another product, it's X, Y, Z, and also introduce any new benefits relating to their objection that you may not have anticipated. And then compromise, say, well, what if the product did X, Y, Z, or did this or did that? Then would you find it valuable enough and then at the end, if you sort of reach an impasse, just move on. So that's a very common way to deal with objections. So let's look at some examples. Our current software is excellent. We don't really see a reason to buy new software. Well, what does excellent mean? How do you know that they wouldn't like your software? How are they judging excellent? The questions I would be asking is, well, how do you judge your current software? What is excellent? And what are those variables? And then right away I know whether I can make a case that my software does something better than their current software does. This is too expensive is another one. Same thing. Well, what does expensive mean? Do you mean the price you're paying for it in relation to the value you get from it? Well, maybe your product has a whole different value proposition and therefore would rationalize a higher price. This is going to take too much time to install. Well, what do you do when you install a product? How long does it take? Maybe I can help you install it. My people can do that for you. I can deliver it installed. There's a bunch of ways to get around a problem like that. So you guys get the idea that the customer is going to use an objection to buying your product. They're going to give you a reason why you can't buy it. And you're not going to do these things, and you're going to go through a process of asking questions, empathizing, talking about your benefits, and trying to work around that objection. This is a tough thing to do. It's an art, not a science, but I cheat by making a list with very good responses, and then I sort of remember those responses. So objections are a hard thing to overcome, but read up on techniques for overcoming them and find one that works for you.